Building consensus on the G20 summit in Delhi, India's presidency. The success of the G20 summit hinges on a truce among fractious parties. India's big moment as host of the G20 summit will arrive this weekend as world leaders gather in New Delhi for the main event marking the year of its presidency. The group is seen as a more egalitarian version of the G7 as it includes the leadership of the developing world and is now the preeminent forum for global economic cooperation. At the start of its presidency last December, it was clear that India would be hamstrung by several events. The global economic headwinds, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, meant a challenging environment for New Delhi in ensuring that all countries were willing to contribute resources for imperatives such as climate finance and investment in health and poverty alleviation. The Ukraine conflict and the sanctions against Russia were next, practically splitting the G20 down the middle. This made forging a joint statement even last year difficult. But Indonesian President Joko Widodo was able to ensure a tenuous consensus by traveling to Moscow and Kyiv and enlisting India's support. India's presidency also came amidst continuing bilateral tensions with China over its border moves. This has become an additional problem for India's G20 Sherpa team as China has played spoiler at many a meeting. The government's decision to hold the G20 summit 2 months early, instead of in November, the practice, has given officials less time to ensure that the leaders' declaration is ready. Some of the heavy lifting on building consensus will now be left to Prime Minister Narendra Modi to handle. In the face of such odds, India's efforts to ensure the vitality of the G20 process have been valiant and also a well-thought-out one. Mr. Modi made it clear from the beginning that India would not take sides in the Ukraine conflict and instead focused on issues affecting the global south, holding a summit of developing countries, putting issues of food, fertilizer and energy security, multilateral reform and global governance above geopolitical issues. India even hosted the Voice of Global South Summit. Mr. Modi also championed the induction of the African Union into the G20, which will be a feather in India's cap if it goes through. Internally, the Indian G20 presidency has been marked by a distinct effort to democratize the process by holding 220 meetings across 60 Indian cities, which, though colossally expensive, has ensured a showcasing of India's diversity. India's G20 moment is already memorable, but the days ahead will be crucial in cementing its legacy. That legacy hinges on ensuring a truce among its fractious members that allows for a consensus over the vision of one Earth, one family, one future in the next few days.